Hey everyone, and welcome to week 6 of my Weeknotes. I feel like time is flying by. I never thought weeks were going this quickly until I had to sit down at the end of the week and write a week note, which I guess says a lot about how quickly my weeks have actually gone in reality. I guess it's a good thing with all of the lockdowns that have been happening, but I don't know, where has the time gone? I'm going to record this video as quickly as I can because there's a lot of noise going on. There's like some sirens in London for some reason, and some helicopters and some building work and all of the fun stuff that makes recording videos really difficult. So I'm going to try and get this done really sharpish. Alright, so this week we're going to be talking about 3 things. Firstly, we're going to be talking about delivering deliverables. Secondly, a quick update on my personal OKRs for Q1. And finally, a quick, again, very brief overview about an online masterclass, which I'm starting to put together. Before we dive into the week note, just a quick ask. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're really liking this, please give this a thumbs up and subscribe. It always really helps the algorithm. And if you're watching this on something like LinkedIn or Twitter or something else, do whatever the relevant things are there. Maybe like it, maybe retweet it, share it, whatever the thing is. That'd be really helpful. Thanks. Okay, so delivering deliverables. Our team's first big client deliverable this week, and it was a bit of a hectic week because of that. I think we all learned a lot this week about how you can package up deliverables so that they're actually useful. So condensing, so in this case it was 1 month of deliverables. We've been doing show and tells every couple of weeks or every week or so. Been doing workshops with the clients and stuff like that. So and end of day stand downs and things like that. So this wasn't the only time we'd ever caught up with the client, but it was like our first big opportunity to say, hey, here's a whole bunch of artifacts and things that we developed. And it was really interesting because distilling down 4 weeks worth of work from a fully stacked team of people is actually really quite difficult. So when we were doing so, we kind of took this bullet point approach, or we tried to take this bullet point approach to try and keep it as concise as possible whilst keeping it useful for the client. So what we didn't want to do is just send an email with some artifacts attached to it and go, there you go, job done, right? Because that's not useful for anybody, and ultimately, whilst it's good that the client gets their deliverable because that's kind of what they're paying for, at least that's part of what they're paying for, they don't, in that example, they wouldn't get to see all of the hard work that's gone into it, and perhaps some of how the rest of their teams that they work with can learn from this. Perhaps there were some avenues that we explored that were pretty useless when we ended up exploring them, and we have that knowledge now, and as somebody who's kind of a third party to the client, we should be sharing that with the client, not in a kind of like, oh, we wasted our time way, but in a, oh, by the way, here's some lessons we learned. This group of people is really valuable, this other group might not be, whatever it might be. So anyway, we took a bullet point approach to focus on some key themes, and those key themes were: number 1, what did we learn? Number 2, which investigation avenues led to dead ends for us? Number 3, which frameworks did we utilize in order to get there, or methodologies or like ways of thinking? Number 4, what does the artifact or output actually look like? Like, what does the thing that we agreed to deliver look like? And number 5, how can the client use this going forward? So one of the examples you might have is where an output is a snapshot in time of perhaps a bunch of team layouts, and I don't know who's working for what team or whatever it might be. Those go out of date really quickly, and also they're not very useful after a bit of time because nobody's looked at them, and like, it's a great snapshot in time, thanks Jessica, but also I want it to be useful for you and the client. So an example of that 5th recommendation that we gave, or part of the 5th recommendation, it would be, okay, well, you could use this in your retros to make sure that you're talking to the right people. You could use this in your planning sessions. You could look at this once a quarter, like whatever that thing looks like, to try and help the client understand how they can keep it relevant and fresh. Otherwise, they'll end up running a similar exercise in another couple of months. And that's fine, because there's absolutely valid reasons why you might do that. Perhaps there's a new way of looking at the world, or things have radically changed. But for a normal kind of like run the business type of program of work, there's no real need to do that, at least not regularly. And so you could just save some time, money and effort for doing that. So we tried to answer we created some bullet points, really, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and we put them down in a slide deck and also on a Miro board, and we will be shipping those over to the client. But also more than that, we're going to be walking them through that, so they get to have this first-hand understanding, or second-hand understanding, because we have the first-hand understanding, I guess, of how we got there and how this all works. And hopefully that's much more useful than just shipping over an output and saying please find attached and it being like 700 slides and no one's ever going to read that. So yeah, that's what we learned this week about delivering deliverables. The next section is about Q1 updates to my personal OKRs. So folks might not be aware, but at the start of the year, during the midst of a global pandemic, decided to set personal OKRs for the year. And the reason I'm sharing this on a kind of, I guess, work thing is because I don't really see much difference between the two things, if I'm being honest. I bring my entire self to work, as people who have worked with me know. So I don't have a problem talking about personal stuff whilst also talking about work stuff. There are obviously reasons and scenarios where you wouldn't do that, but I try and bring my whole self to work, and as part of that, there's absolutely going to be personal stuff that comes alongside that. Personal in this context doesn't necessarily mean bad. Sometimes people use the phrase like, oh, personal reasons, and what they mean is like some horrific thing has happened. In my context, what I mean is like just my non-work life and everything that might fall into that. So last week I said that I'd make a YouTube video about this. I haven't done that. I feel really bad I haven't done that. But what I have done is I've drafted an entire blog post on it as an update. And for those who aren't aware, I draft a blog post and then I make a YouTube video using that blog post as a kind of framework. So it won't take me long to make that video next week or this weekend. So don't worry, it's coming. For those who are interested in how I'm faring against my yearly goals for my personal life, make sure you subscribe or like or comment or whatever the thing is that you want to do to alert the YouTube algorithm or Twitter algorithm or LinkedIn algorithm that you're really interested in that content. And then my face will keep surfacing, and hopefully that's a good thing. The third section, and again I'm trying to keep this short and sweet this week due to noise related reasons. So the third thing is I started outlining the very basics of an online masterclass or an online course. Don't worry, this is not me suddenly going off and becoming a Bitcoin guru, or I'm not going to start selling NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which for folks who haven't seen the entire discourse on that for the last couple of weeks, this is not that. I'm also not going to be telling anyone about stocks and trades and like stuff like that. No, not one of those online gurus. But there are things that I have learned and I have first-hand experience in, and folks continually say I'm really good at and want me to run sessions within their own organisations for. So I thought, why wouldn't I build some of those things into a bit of an online masterclass and then offer that as either an online masterclass that people can take themselves for a reasonable price, but also more than that so that people can book in and perhaps online masterclass but in person if we can do in-person classes or something like that. It's the worst thing that happens. I get some knowledge out of my brain and maybe some people find it useful. That's pretty great. And that would make me really happy. And at best, people find it very useful and they sign up for more or whatever it might be, or tell their friends or something like that. I'm going to be sharing more details on my Twitter, so I've linked to my Twitter down below, so if you're interested in that sort of stuff, please check it out. I'll be kind of leaking interesting upcoming kind of like sneak peek stuff there over the coming weeks, so watch out for that. Alright, so next week, what's coming next week? 3 things. 1, numero uno, it's the end of the tax year, and because it's the end of the tax year, as a owner of a company, Cluster Consulting, I now need to do that so that HMRC is not mad at me. The second one is I'm writing more and hopefully filming the first episode for this online masterclass next week or this weekend. That should be very exciting. And thirdly, client work. Okay, I've waffled on enough. Weekend, like, subscribe, do all that great stuff if you're interested, and yeah, say hello. Thanks everyone, bye.